We're monitoring the off-cycle elections in Imo, Bayelsa, and Kogi State. And, a development that came in from Kogi State earlier today, and that was at polling unit 002 in Igala-Ogba, that's in Ida local government area. Voters there were said to have booed a fake party agent, someone who had just use the camouflage. Well, we do not know what exactly that individual had planned to do, but the voters were able to identify him and they booed him, and he was taken out of that space by security agents. Mr. Wilcox, let's talk about this, the role of voters, of citizens themselves in the election process.
Sincerely speaking, they should really own the process, because every polling unit is localized. It's within your confines. So you apparently should know most of the people around, especially those in the rural areas. I mean, Lagos, yes, you might not know everybody. I mean, big cities, you might not know everybody, even places like Lokoja or where you might not, but there are some localities you must know everybody. Unfortunately, too, our voter register has not really been cleaned up. We still have a lot of duplications and names, but INEC has done a lot about it. But so people should know themselves around. So if anybody comes in, intruder comes in, if it's a locality, they should know and say, this one, we don't know you, or we know you somewhere else, or we used to know you in the other street. So what are you doing here? So citizens should own it. So each time I hear voter party, I get worried. Why will ordinarily individuals do not want to come out to vote? In my polling units, I live in Shomole. In my polling units, whenever I look at the voters list, there are over, I think 600, close to 700 on the voters list. But there's never been a time 150 coming out to vote. Never. In all the elections, there's never been a time 150 come out to vote. Lagos has on the voting, I think it's now about 8 million or thereabout. But how was that? Even in the presidential election that was highly contested, we had less than 1.5 million, about 1.5 million thereabout. So what is it's either our voters register is faulty, and which for me that counts to a very large extent, or people register and they don't bother to go out and vote. That can be said in some highbrow areas. I mean, we know highbrow areas like I'm talking about Lagos now, like Etios and where we have always had the fact that these people, it is maybe their house helps and that could go out and vote. And again, there is a lot of migrations. Again, there's a lot of migrations. Maybe today you're living in these streets, tomorrow you have moved to another area. I mean, I always use Shomole as my base. We used to have many of smaller face-me-face-you houses. Now there's a lot of new development, a lot of property developers have invaded the place and chased away every of the people that are there. So they will have moved to Ikorodu or some other areas. So when a next election comes, because there's no movement, they will not be able to vote. So there's a lot of migrations going on. I mean, but the difference is too wide. And then, again, the youths that are supposed to be the bedrock, their non-interest in this process should be worrisome. And that is why they should be, yes, what happened during the presidential election when a lot of people were agile, especially the youths, they wanted to make a statement, they wanted to make a change. And maybe when the change didn't come, their own expectation, what they wanted, maybe they just went back to their shares and discredit the system. And there's a lot of bad publicity that discredit the system, either from the print media, from the electronic media, from social media, that discredit the system. So when this continues, and the politicians are more guilty, look at it now, we just talked about it. Somebody who is supposed to be a contestant now wake up and you now hold a press conference and said the processor. So you've already discredited the system. So what do you expect the day-to-day man on the street to do? When you are the one discrediting the system, you are the politician. So the politicians must learn how to promote the system. No matter how hot you are, you promote the system. Because it is when you get more people into the system that you can get your ambition actualized. But if you keep discrediting the system, you are driving people away from embracing the process. And then, so what do you expect to gain? Like I said, there is no threshold. So even if it is, if you like, have 200, the whole Nigerian 200 million people on the voter register, and on election day, only 10 million people comes out to vote. That 10 million, whoever has the highest number of votes and win and get the spread as well by the law, will be elected, will be declared the winner. So it is in our own best interest, and that's the politicians, to make sure that to give the system a lot of advertising, marketing, and not to discredit it, because it's great today because it didn't favor you. Tomorrow it favors you. I just talked about Shimole. In the morning, Jega was a failure. In the evening, Jega was a successful man. So we must learn not to be double standard.
All right, so we're having Hamzat Lawal, the CEO of Connected Development, joining us via Zoom to give us an update on what he has observed so far as an election observer. Yeah. And he's giving us an update. Good evening, Hamzat. I'm sure you can hear me at this point, but let's know what you have observed so far. At this time, it's about some minutes going up to 6 p.m. What has been your observation of the election so far?
Oh, good evening, and thank you for having me. Just to first say that right now, sorting are ongoing and results are being counted. And as at 30 minutes ago on the IRF platform, results from Kogi, Bias, and Imo have been uploaded, and citizens can see the results on the IRF platform. 72 hours ago, I arrived to Kogi State, where I was received by the resident electoral commissioner. We jointly supervised and also inspected the sensitive materials that was sorted at the Central Bank of Nigeria and deployed to the 21 local governments of the state. I also have report from observers that 48 hours to the election, sensitive materials was deployed to all the local governments in Bayelsa states, because some local governments are riverine area. Afterwards, I traveled down to 4 local governments in Kogi State and launched our user-based situation room, which is a hub collecting real-time information from our observers in all the local governments in Kogi State, in Bayelsa State, and in Imo State. Today, I can confirm to you that, or before even this morning, we went to different rack centers to ensure that both sensitive and non-sensitive materials move to rack centers with security personnel to guarantee safety of life and property. As of this morning by 7 a.m., we head out to the field. At 7:30, we observed that INEC officials arrived early in various polling units, and as at 7:45, they set up, and as at 8 a.m., we observed that polling have opened and voting was done. We also observed that the beavers did not malfunction. The beavers was working in optimum. I even had the opportunity to cast my ballot because, my polling unit is domiciled here in Kogi State, and it took me less than 30 seconds for accreditation and getting my ballot paper. I can also confirm that we had a lot of priority voting for older people, pregnant women, people with disability. And also we had high numbers of turnout of women, young people, and people with disability in various polling units across Kogi State. But we also observed that in Imo State and Bayelsa State, there is low voter turnout. We observed that these voter inducements in Bayelsa State, at first they were buying votes for 15,000 naira, and it went up to 30,000 naira. We got evidence, picture, and video. And if you go on my X account, which is Twitter, you'll see the video that I personally tweeted from our accredited, verifiable observer on the field.
So the issue of voter inducement is still in the system. As an observer, what really would be your counsel at this time? Because we need to get, this right. We need that when people come out to vote, they vote their conscience and they vote whoever they actually desire to lead them, in the period ahead. So what really would be your call now to INEC on one hand, to the citizens and security agencies?
I think this is a call to the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission and the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. Yes, I'm aware that EFCC deploys their personnel on the ground to apprehend people who are inducing voters. But I think that we need to have serious conversation on our value system. But most importantly, we need to strengthen security agencies, particularly around intelligence gathering. How people are also moving money around. And I think the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit also need to play a role. I think that there is an opportunity here to approach the 10th National Assembly and let's jointly review what are the gaps in the 2022 Electoral Act and how can we strengthen it. But beyond strengthening it, how can we also put resources, giving security agencies more resources, to be able to function optimally, also provide resources to INEC and ensure that INEC is able to, one, ensure that the logistical nightmare that we face during general elections, because this is an off-season election. That's why we are able to, ensure that security agencies deploy personnel. Police, for instance, deploy 40,000 personnel. I'm not even talking about Army and Department of State Services. So again, I think there's an opportunity here where we can look at this gap, but also scale as we go into 2027 general election. But most importantly, our value system is breaking rapidly.
All right, so I'm wondering if you observed the provisions made by INEC for people living with disabilities, for women and the children. For instance, about a month ago, INEC said about 2,338 polling units provided for people with disabilities. And they said they were providing bail ballots that will be available, magnifying glasses for people with albinism, and enlarged posters for voters with hearing impairment. Did you see any of this at different polling units you visited?
Yes, I can confirm to you that we even saw enhancers being provided by INEC. And that's why there was priority voting for people living with disability. I think we need to scale on this. Yes, I can confirm to you that INEC actually provided rails for people with disability, and they've been that awareness and sensitization. And I can also say that the INEC ad hoc staff were well trained to handle this matter. And I think we must commend citizens who were patient enough to understand that, yes, we must prioritize older people, pregnant women, and people with disabilities. So there's inclusiveness, but we need to also learn from this and scale, because during general election, there was not much that there's getting this kind of positive events. But maybe because this is all local election just from 3 states which are participating in these governorship elections.
Indeed, it's been such a day. I can see your face. Really, you must have had, a really long day. But then, let me just bring up this call that came in from former President Goodluck Jonathan. He believes that off-cycle elections should be done away with, and that the legislature should actually step in to just manage the situation. What do you think? How feasible is that call?
This is practically impossible, because I know after this election we're still going to go into litigation, and this is only possible when politicians don't interfere in the electoral process. We didn't come into a democracy like this. It was unified, and then because of elections being overturned, now we have off-season elections. So what then happened to someone who is duly elected? Are you saying he should not use 4 years that is constitutionally provided? So this is practically impossible. But yeah, it's okay for us to have a conversation, but let's look at it from the point of amending the Electoral Act and the Nigerian Constitution provision that give INEC that legal and regulatory framework. This is practically impossible. But I'm also looking at this off-season election from the positive aspect. We can deploy 40,000 police personnel, joint military and civil defense and Department of State Service personnel. But in general election, we don't have the capacity to deploy this. So again, I think we need to look at this from a perspective that, is this realistic? Or, we as much as we can throw up buzzwords, but, realistically speaking, it's not possible.
Well, let's look at the issue of voter apathy as well that was experienced in Kogi State. What do you think must have been responsible for that?
Not in Kogi. The apathy that we reported was mostly even in Bayelsa State. Okay. And that's why vote buying moved from 15,000 to 30,000. Yes, there was a bit of voter apathy also in Imo State. But if you look at the clips, particularly from the polling unit we went to, because I was able to visit about 5 local governments, there was massive turnout, particularly women, young people, and people with disability. Yes, we know that there was a bit of tension, and this was caused by the political actors, because before now, political campaigners were using inciting and inflammatory statements. And that's why a lot of people are surprised. Oh, we thought they were going to be violent in Kogi State. How come, so far there's no any form or atom of violence? Everything is very peaceful. So again, when you also look at apathy, and low voter turnout, I think we need to also look at the INEC register. This register has been collated for over a decade. We've not really cleaned up this register. We can always argue and debate that maybe 15% of the people in the register have died or relocated, 10% have relocated, or another 10 have, left the country. But nobody has really audited this register and cleaned it up. So yes, we might say we have about 90 million register nationally, but come to think of it, have we audited and cleaned up this register, or we continue to add and we just say, oh, there's low voter turnout? But we can't put this side by side evidence-based data. So first, one thing we need to do as stakeholders, electoral stakeholders, is to review, audit, and clean up the electoral register, so we even understand what exactly we have. And then as we approach the 10th National Assembly and as we call for electoral reform, and also sensitize and mobilize people to come out in 2027, let our message be clear. But before it's clear, it must be informed by a voter register that, look at the reality of the current time.
Earlier you mentioned that you were able to, get your accreditation done in, just about 30 seconds. I think I'm really glad about that. And I really just hope that many other voters had same experience, because that would mean that the level of confidence that they have in INEC, would receive some boost at this time. Because following the general election, there were a whole lot of talks out there, especially among young people, about losing confidence in INEC. Do you think INEC has been able to redeem itself, or is it too early in the day to make that statement categorically?
I think this election has set a benchmark and a foundation for rebuilding public trust and confidence. And if you look at how INEC is being responsive, how issues we escalated in various states was addressed even publicly. So INEC is now more transparent, accountable, but most importantly, responsive and giving timely information, which also help us or to counter fake news, misinformation, and disinformation. So I think INEC is now on the pathway to rebuilding back public trust. And I think we can use that, as a yardstick to how government or public institution engage general public to build that confidence. Because for every government policy that must work, citizens must take ownership and have buy into it.
But should we be worried about the fact that today a voter election result was seen in a particular polling unit, and the only thing INEC has said is that we are investigating, but till now, no other tangible information has come from them?
Well, I think there's no cause for alarm, because yes, we can be worried about it, because how did a result sheet get filled even before voting commenced? I think it's commendable that INEC responded immediately after we escalated it as observers and joined civil society voice around it. And now they say they investigate. It's important to know that we have 10 resident electoral commissioners, 9 state reps, and a national commissioner. So again, they need to look how did this come to be? I can confirm to you that in my present Kogi State resident electoral commissioner was signing the results sheet, for for local government coalition. But the result sheet that was filled was a result sheet for a polling unit. So again, they need to really escalate and provide timely information, so that when results are being collated and finally being announced, we don't have so many litigation and there is no apprehension that might lead to breakdown of law and order.
And before the elections, there were calls from different quarters. In some states, it was that the police commissioner should be moved. In other states, it was that the resident electoral commissioner should be changed. But it was not in all of these cases that those calls were actually acceded to. Do you think that could in any way have an impact on this election?
No, not at all. Because why would people come on the street for 8 hours to election and say the commissioner of police should be changed? That's really political. Let's be realistic and not play politics with everything. We can't continue to play politics with everything. This is an electoral process, and let's support the institution so that it's seamless. Yes, I know that some CP was redeployed, in some states, but why? There are no clear evidence to call for removal of resident electoral commissioner. But I also think that it's an opportunity to rethink how, even if Mr. President has the powers to appoint or nominate resident electoral commissioners, why the Senate, clear them before they're sworn into office. I think it's important that we must ensure that the people that are appointed as resident electoral commissioner are neutral, because they can't have political lining. Because what this do is it dents the public institution and takes away public trust from those institutions. So appointment of resident electoral commission. And I think that when we call for electoral reform, maybe we can look at the Constitution itself and the clauses that empowers the president and see how we can make it more clearer that these are the criteria and these are the kind of people that should man that office and their roles and responsibility clearly set out.
All right.
Okay, so we're going to have more elections and by-elections to come. Of course, we have the likes of Edo next year.
State.
We have that of Ondo next year as well. Then other states will follow, and so we have also by-elections. Looking at these off-cycle elections between Kogi, Bayelsa, and Imo State, what more can INEC do to better the process?
I think to train and retrain the ad hoc staff. I also think that to do more mock tests and also work closely with security agencies. Beyond what more INEC can do, this election have also taught me that security agencies have what it takes to tackle insecurity and banditry and any form of insurgency or terrorist attack. So I think that we have what we need, but we need to ensure there's political will and we put money where our mouth is. That's one thing I'm learning as we observe this election and get a better understanding about the security architecture and apparatus.
Well, Mr. Lawal, let me quickly read the story and then I would come to you. It's coming from Kogi State. It's something we've actually discussed in the studio earlier. And that's about the PDP governorship candidate, Senator Dino Melaye, commending security operatives for their conduct since the election began. He, however, knocked INEC over already filled result sheets in the possession of some of their staff in some local government areas. Mr. Melaye also alleged instances of vote buying, alleging that funds were used to sway voters' opinions. Let's listen to him and then we'll come to you.
And the security agencies that there was, in fact, I would say we are suffocated with security. I would say that security is oversubscribed for the election. There was adequate security across board, and I think the security agencies so far have done brilliantly well. I just do hope that the security agencies will do exactly what they did during the preparatory processes of the election to the actual vote casting, to results announcement, that the same type of vigor is given to the collation centers. The collation centers must be protected at local government level, at the federal level, and at the state level.
Senator Dilo Melaye, governorship candidate of the PDP in Kogi State there, yes, praised INEC for the conduct, but then he spoke about the already filled result sheets as alleged also by the SDP governorship candidates now, Murtala Ajaka. What do you make of that?
Well, I think that, and I know that the Resident Electoral Commissioner made this statement in my presence where he said, any place where there are irregularities, he has the powers to cancel or not recognize the vote. So he's going to make it null and void. So once this investigation is thoroughly carried out, we expect to hear back from INEC on what they will do moving forward. I think that, yes, I don't expect anything less from those candidates. For them, it's always about politics. And everyone is a member of a political party running under those platforms to win elections. So, but for me as an independent observer, my role is to observe, document my findings and reports and submit it to the appropriate authority. But I want to give INEC a benefit of doubt to finish the investigation and come back to election stakeholders and the general public on what actually went wrong. And if anyone is found wanting, I want them to extend the full route of the law and ensure that this person is duly prosecuted. So this serves as a this acts as a deterrent to others who want to interfere in our electoral process.
I would like to thank you very sincerely for talking to us. I know you need some rest now, and I hope you are able to get it in the midst of the whole work you're up to. Hamzat Lawal is CEO Connected Development, and he's observing the elections. He joined us from Kogi State. Thank you very much for talking to us.
Oh, thank you, and continue to do good work, TVC. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll take a moment, and when we return, we'll continue the conversation on our special coverage of the off-cycle elections in Imo, Kogi, and Bayelsa states.